Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer. Nice to see you again, Dave.
Nice to see you, Jonathan. This is This and That. We are going to be discussing everything going on in the figure skating world, the Grand Prix of Finland, Jason Brown in Poland, and Yuzuru Hanyu's divorce. So lots to happen here. If you are new here, please subscribe below. Jonathan, you look like you are in your lovely abode outside Philadelphia.
Correct. And because it's later, like the lighting is goofy, so I have a lamp facing me. So it does look like I have like a nice little glow there on my forehead.
Okay. I am staying at an Airbnb in Lake Placid, and apparently it's like just me staying, and they used to have, I think, like migrant workers spend like 4 to a room in this apartment. So yeah, it's
and your overhead spotlight seems
I
very
hate it, but
ethereal. It's ethereal. It's like
I'm also sitting on a spinal correcting chair that like works your core, and because I've been correcting my upper and lower cross syndrome for the last months, but then like Karen Cortland Kelly is really helping me. She's like a genius with Pilates and pattern propagation. She's had some graduate study in, so she's been having me do all sorts of stuff. So it's been, intense. So
you're working out while we're talking about skating.
What is it on Will and Grace when she said, you can't tell I'm doing anything, but my abs sure can. I mean, she said
that's right.
Not abs, but yes. Yes. So, yeah, a lot of that going on. So yeah, it's great. I'm exhausted, and we're gonna be extra quippy because they pass out intermittently. We have figures in the morning, Jonathan.
Look forward to it, Dave. Yeah, okay.
Paul has a lot of corrections. A lot. There's a lot of information.
Gentleman. Yeah.
What?
He's an exacting gentleman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it shows in his skating. Yeah.
Yes. I know the videos could be called Too Intense People. Yes, I started a new Facebook account, which you have not liked yet. It's called Figure Skating Technique on Facebook, and I've shared some of the posts on the skating lesson. So it's to really separate classic technique and how to make yourself a better skater and athlete, and it's also for coaches and for people who are just learning and parents to understand like the nuances of different things. So,
I'm sorry, and also for the fan.
Yes.
To understand more about the origin of that edge. This is why we look for that edge in this jump. To me, the more you know, even if you are not a skater, the more of the nuts and bolts you know, the more you are appreciating or looking with a more informed critical eye at the competition. Yeah.
Yeah. And if coaches have skaters that they want to demonstrate and they want to film, that that's fine. I'm using some of my own lessons to show mistakes I'm having and then how someone goes about correcting it. So I haven't practiced a lot in like a year, and Paul's like,
I don't think Soma has either, actually. Yeah.
Well, we're getting the Lutz on the outside edge when you're using the back figure 8 to do it. And it's interesting because the skaters today are judged on a system that's based on something of standards in the past, but their bodies aren't prepared in the same way, or often technically. So it just shows different ways. And he has an interesting teaching style, I guess, that Evie did, where if you go like jump, drill, like, so we'll go double sow, backspin, double sow, and like working on something different each time in like all of these different exercises. So, and he does his backspin like way more aggressively than I like to, but it's how he does it, and we're learning. So yeah. So follow it. Yes, comment. You can see me fall and wipe out, and showing it all, Jonathan. We're showing it all.
Vulnerable, Dave.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Why not? Right. It's real. That's what's interesting, right? So anyway.
Right.
Speaking of people who fell all over the place, Kamila Valieva was 4th at an event that's supposed to be, Terry was upset with the judges. All right. Here's the thing. The other girls never liked Valieva in the group, and they used to call her this word that meant arrogant. And I didn't understand it. And I still am unclear. It's either, I think there's some sort of a defense mechanism going on in the kiss and cry when she laughs after a performance that's so below what she is capable of doing. And I have to say, I'm uncomfortable by the laughter because I don't know what it is. It's not that I want her to hang her head in shame. but I don't like, is it a protective mechanism? Like what is, but to me, this is a great skater who was struggling through that. I mean, she's doing a solo triple toe at the end, like it's Sasha Cohen in 2000 nationals, right? And honestly, we're praying that she lands it about as much, right? And I think that there are real limitations into what she's doing right now, as a person could see, and I feel for her. I don't know that I see it improving that much. And there's always an excuse. There was an excuse a couple times, who knows, but to me, it's uncomfortable, her reaction to it. And I understand, like, she and Terry has never looked more supportive of an athlete since this one got caught doping at the Olympics. Like, Terry is really performing, when she gets off the ice.
Publicly scolded for being pulled by the head of the IOC.
Yes, but like, I don't know that she's that much nicer to her other skaters than she used to be. We haven't seen her as much, but this is clearly performative from the, the fake Worlds event that they had in 2022, and she was like hugging her, and you know what, good for them. They're enjoying, right? I mean, it's uncomfortable. I find the whole thing uncomfortable. A lot of the
reminds me of when Paulina was making that sort of, to me on the outside, confusing comeback.
Yeah.
And she was very clearly putting out material that she knew was not competitive. And she and her mother used to have that response in the Kiss and Cry. This sort of giggly.
I mean, it's a defense mechanism for sure.
Yeah.
It's just uncomfortable because it's happening every time.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, when someone like starts laughing and then starts bawling, like that is the vibe that I get. But it seems like she wants to skate. She's obviously a symbol of propaganda in the country, right? So whether they are making it so that she wants to skate or she wants to skate and is benefiting from it, there are nuances there, but I'm sure it behooves her to continue performing. But what I wonder is, at what point can they no longer prop her up? And at this point, we're seeing 4th place here, 3rd place.
That is propped up.
Yeah, and 3rd place a year ago, she did have beautiful quad toes, but listen, I didn't take a hair follicle test. And also, and I don't think it's rude to suggest that, by the way. I think the evidence shows that.
And speaking of which, because they did convene their, were they called hearings?
It was a hearing. It was like the follow-up, and it's supposed to...
in January? Is that when it's
January?
Yeah. Okay.
What does your gut say? I think it's going to be 2 years backdated. And I don't know if it'll be from the Russian championships or when it was announced, but I think they're going to split the difference. I do. I have this feeling that no one is going to be satisfied and everybody is going to yell forever. It just feels so right and so wrong, but it just feels like, oh my goodness.
It was sort of those things, because didn't something similar happen to Sotskova, where by the time the punishment came down, the relevancy of her competitively was gone anyway?
No, she's banned for 10 years or suspended for 10 years, however you want to nuance that. She's not allowed to participate in figure skating. But it was, I think the test result came out after she was done, but they took a really hard stance, and it appeared to be a sacrificial lamb based on the scope of what other people have been suspended for.
Yeah. I mean, I just think even if they do backdate it, and let's say in some scenario at some point Russia is let back in, I think that her time will have passed anyway. That's what this competition was showing us. Yeah. So I don't know that she's really any worse for wear with whatever they say.
I don't think she'll make a team that competes internationally.
But
Akacheva's injured again, and it is...
How would you compare, like, the way you're seeing Valieva now to the way we were sort of seeing Zagitova in that post-Olympic season?
To me, there are some... The first season or the second season? Because the second season, the Cleopatra year, it was clear.
Yes, and not when she was still able to pull it out for Worlds, but the season after.
Yeah, I mean, there are different athletes, and they're different technically. I think they both have a fighting spirit. Zagitova always seemed more frightened to me, like she performed out of fear, right? Until later on, right? Valieva seems to have more of a self-confidence, but you can tell the stamina is not there.
Right.
And it looks like it gets to be harder and harder and harder. I mean, she's trying to do quads, but I think as the age limit increases, it's going to be harder and harder for her. So, but it could also sort of even out in a sense. I mean, her problem is not just the jumps to me. The in-betweens are so sluggish that they impact the spins. But, it looked like she's falling out of 3 turns, rolling through and things like that. So I think that if she were to continue, she'd have to get in really good physical condition, and they might have to be more realistic about what she can handle performing. So I imagine her jump content was hard for them to stomach at first, but they don't think that they care as much because it's not international competition and so on and so forth. But the solo triples that she's choosing are just not that competitive in the top world. And I think we're seeing the Russian skating is deteriorating without the incentive to competition. That doesn't mean it will be forever, because they have younger kids going up who have never competed internationally. But I think we're seeing from that upper group, there's less motivation and less of a reason. I mean, think about the ones that pulled out. I mean, Kusturnaya is doing something new, so she's motivated, but how many others are kind of getting tired or looking exhausted? So, yeah. What do you think about Jason Brown? At this point, we can talk about the program and just how he seems at this point in time. Alyssa was saying a little bit that he was injured on tour, was her understanding. He was minorly injured. They've never really used injuries as an excuse or to talk about with Jason, but before the Olympic year, I remember thinking that he looked physically weaker all that year, and people got very upset, in the comments, but he did, right? And he had I think a broken foot or broken ankle, whatever that was, which is an injury and one that you have to build your stamina and your strength back up from. And it just his preparation looked rushed, and then he looked phenomenal last season. And I kind of wonder if was last season that peak? I think he could still hit a peak performance, right? But his sustained greatness over time.
But we didn't really. So last season, we also saw him at Japan Open, just like we saw him this season. And then didn't he really sit dormant until nationals?
He was doing shows, but yeah,
competitively, yeah. I'm curious why he felt the need to go to the Warsaw Cup.
I don't know. I mean, they wanted an international start. I mean, get points. But why would you choose that instead of a Grand Prix? I don't know, right? There are all these different.
Or rest, because Jason, I mean, as we have understood it, even in the height of his competitive career, he was on the more fragile side compared to some of his other colleagues. And so the idea of being careful, of resting, of playing it smart, I just wonder why rush it then with the Warsaw Cup. I probably would have just said, take your time. Let's see you at nationals.
Well, I think he needs to build for nationals, and he still does have time, but I think it's clear that he's struggling technically compared to get himself back in that place takes work, and it takes more work every year that you get older, probably every 6 months, right? It takes more and more work to get yourself up to that spot. That's just reality. So, and the other thing is his program is
triple axel here, the under rotation on the triple, just some.
Yeah, I like the short. It is kind of similar to other programs he has done in the past that might have been a little bit better, but they were also more original at the time that we saw them. So we hadn't seen this kind of theme or genre for him. I don't think it's as effective as it would have been had we not seen Sinnerman or some of those other performances. The free skate's interesting to me because Tarzan just is not recognizable music. This goes into Wuthering Heights. If you know the piece, sure, it's recognizable-ish, but it's not famous music. It's not definitive music. And I don't know that I buy that he's Tarzan at any point. But I don't know what I mean. It has interesting movements. It's not bad. To me, it doesn't hold a candle to some of his other free skates, Schindler's List, last year's
I
program.
appreciate this, and like even you were talking about with the short program, it is such a departure. So it is required. A lot of times what we see is Jason do these killer moves that we know he does in this incredible way. What I appreciate about this is there's like an earthiness to it and a sort of like this raw quality to it that I am less used to seeing from him. So I appreciate like seeing the magic of Jason in this like slightly other style. And even though the music isn't so recognizable, the vibe and the energy of the music is very clear in that cinematic way. I think
does he live up to it at points? Like at one point it starts to really get like bass voice coming in, and I don't see him embodying that, but I also don't think he's in his top form yet to do it. So I think it's going to be one of those harder programs to kind of put all together.
And sort of what I appreciated is that it wasn't, look, I'm now going to necessarily do a Tarzan impersonation.
Yeah.
There's a mix like where, yes, clearly sometimes he is, but to me, he is just more skating in that world.
Yes.
Look at me portraying this character, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I think that's the smarter move for him.
The ending is cool. It can risk being almost cartoonish at points. I can't describe it. It's just...
To me, it's before that line.
It's before that line, but you know that line is there, right?
Yeah.
Like it's pushing something, right? Like it is going up to the line of being successful, unsuccessful, right? Because
and again, if you're Jason and we're like, okay, how do you stay interested and motivated and artistically fulfilled to do just another version of the same? Maybe it's getting monotonous. Like I think this must change up the vibe in the rink. Maybe the music itself inspires. It is a bit driving. It is a bit heavy for his kind of skating, but maybe that's what kind of helps rev him up, where I think it might be hard to be motivated at this point.
Well, I mean, I have the blunt question that I don't want to ask, but it has gone through my head. Where last year, Jason at peak form, when other guys were going for content that was maybe too hard for them, was a relevant factor in the competition. One of the most beautiful people at Worlds, so they did not medal, right? And wasn't that close to medaling, you know, in terms of placement was, but points not. Would it be time for him to move on to NCAA if this were gymnastics, or pro competitions if they existed, or, you know, like there needs to be a venue for him because he is so talented.
Yeah.
But seeing what the other guys are putting out and where this is all going and how this is being judged, I think the cost, risk, benefit, you're right. Like you have to kind of look at this and think, what's the upside, right? At the end of this, because is he realistic
domestically? I think the US probably still wants him because I think
of course
he's still very easily qualify for Worlds and still very easily place higher than our other men.
Right. But is he going to place in the top 5 this year?
I don't see that happening. But he will,
not because he's not good. Not because he's not good, but you've got Yuma. You have Yuma, Shoma, Ilya, Adam and Kevin.
You never know what Matteo is going to do.
Lucas, Bridgie, Matteo. Like, there's a lot of guys that are quite.
Mikhail from Kazakhstan. I mean, he could be making a move in here. Yeah.
You know, I think that guys have developed since last year. Now, we always see people that are stronger at the beginning of the season. Granted, with Jason where he is, he's not quick twitch. He's going to take longer to get ready. I don't know. We'll see.
I guess from one lens, he still is going to place higher, even if it's outside of the top 5, than other American men would.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if that alone is enough motivation for him at least to capture a top 10.
Yes.
Because we see our American men very confused right now outside of Ilya.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is I would not be surprised if this were his last season.
Yeah. And well earned.
Yes.
The man we saw him in 2014 skating in Boston. Like,
yeah.
it would be well-earned rest for sure.
Or he could continue on, but it's harder this year for whatever, reason. And we don't have those articles where athletes are really open about what they're going through. I mean, Brady Tennell withdrew from both Grand Prix, and it was, several weeks before we found out that or a week plus, which felt like forever in skating, that, she got injured on a bracket and broke, her lower extremity, ankle, and you have to wonder for Brady. I mean, that's devastating. And she's had so many injuries.
And even Junwan was supposed to compete here in Finland, but withdrew. And did he list a reason?
Wait, which person?
Junwan Cha.
June, I believe June has an injury as well.
Yeah. There were a lot of...
And Roman Sadovsky's luggage didn't show up.
All right.
It didn't. So...
Is it that you can't check the skates because they think it's a weapon?
Sometimes, I think that's always the fear. I'm always afraid of that.
Yeah. Something about the blades in there or something.
I mean, yeah, you could really hurt someone. You could. Okay. Yes.
I mean, of course,
but
to me,
people travel. I don't know. Listen, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's always the fear, though, when you travel.
Scary.
Yeah. And someone will have to, people can comment about how they travel with skates and whatnot. I'm sure they will love it. But yes, that is. And it's not one of those things that you can really look on the airport and be like, how do I travel with figure skates?
It's not in the TSA pamphlet, is it?
Not in the TSA pamphlet, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. All right. Yuzuru Hanyu's divorce. Jonathan, what do you make of this?
This talk about fandom and fanaticism, all this sort of stuff, we've talked about it a little bit. I love being a fan of figure skating. I love being a fan of certain skaters. I have never understood when certain fans cross that line and get crazed. I agree. We would experience it on the show, obviously. Anytime like we were doing our joking banter about I was rooting for the French and you were rooting for Tessa and Scott that one year. They really had this fan base, some that just love them and they don't want to hear you talk bad about them, but some were really borderline unwell in their obsession with them.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have experienced that with the Fanyus. And it was actually when I went to the Liberace.
Honestly, several.
Yeah.
Fans.
Yeah.
He may have more of fans in general, so that there are more. I think when
they're coming out of the woodwork in the comments, like an army has been mobilized.
Excuse me, but there were people that came out of the comments last week that love to come up when they smell blood, that they can talk down to you, right? People obnoxious people from Twitter and whatnot, because they didn't like Shepard. And it wasn't that they did, it was that they went nasty about it in like long screed. And you're like, come on, right? Like no, I'm going to shut this down. Like this was a guest in our house and screw you, like at least be nice to him. Like you're mean to us. That's one thing, but like it was too much. It was too, and not that's a cup of China. This isn't nationals. This isn't Skate America. This is not Skate Canada. This is not an event that people really want to cover or watch.
Very few new skaters that hadn't already been discussed on the show. And
like we get a lot of messages from people that are struggling to get into the season. Anyway.
Yeah. But when I was in Vegas, the first time they had Skate America there, I went to the Liberace Museum, as one does.
Yes.
They were talking about the biggest problem they've ever had with the museums are like the diehard Liberace fans themselves, that they were trying to take the memorabilia. They didn't want it in the museum and all this sort of stuff. And I remember talking to the curator and saying, well, that seems so confusing because you think they would want the museum with all this stuff in it. And they were like, no, these kinds of fans don't even really care about that person. It becomes this weird transference and it's like they own that.
How about when people want to see an artist and they would like rip their clothes off, right? Of someone that they supposedly idolize, but they're traumatized.
Yeah. So sadly, given the volume of his fame and the hysteria of so many of his fans, which I think don't even like skating.
I think they like him. What's so strange is when he got married, you know, it was an ambiguous announcement. And so many were like saying that it was fake, it wasn't real. Then others were like, you don't understand marriage. Like there was just such
Remember, there was this whole line of thought he was talking about the sport itself.
Nothing about this was usual. Okay. From the, and what is it? How you get them is how you lose them. I mean, this whole relationship.
But now it would seem they were trying to keep it vague and ambiguous on purpose because they knew these fans were just going to go bonkers. And I'm talking about a sect of fans. It's not anyone that just likes them.
There are other people that think it was all for publicity, like a Taylor Swift romance, right? Like how much?
But then, to me, then they would have made it more public. They would have utilized.
You would think.
Yeah.
I mean, so then
I think he was probably trying to protect her. And then they ended up finding out, and it was miserable for her. And if he cared about her, was like, I'm sorry, I don't want to put you through this. That's how I read it.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't envy that kind of thing.
I'm just going to say the whole thing was unusual to witness from beginning to end. So was Michelle Kwan's first marriage.
No.
There was just something that seemed odd from beginning to end.
But I didn't find Michelle's fan base. I mean, I'm sure she had experiences with overzealous fans, but like she didn't have the kind of fan base, and maybe it was that kind of era where they're not gonna like hunt you down.
Well, social media and the internet has really changed things. I mean, think about Scott Moyer. Has he ever announced that like he got married or had a kid or did it? Like who? But everybody know. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
And remember, they were tracking their whereabouts during COVID, and
it's scary. That's scary stuff.
Yeah, when you're on the other end, it's
and especially if you know that it's affecting your partner or spouse. That's hard.
There's a lot of weird
people
stuff that goes on.
Yeah. The
internet is a weird place to be, especially right now. There were people that were trying to get us to make a statement about Israel. Then I put one of those things like, I don't want anyone dead, which is so true. Like, I don't want Israelis dead, and I also don't want Palestinians. And people are like, you anti-Semite. Like, that is not what I was saying. Okay, no. But people have such outrage, they can't see through what you're saying, and they're like, it's just And
it's a show where we recap skating events. The venue.
I'm a gay boy from New Jersey who talks about figure skating. I don't want anyone killed in war or bloodshed. I also am not feeling
an expert in this situation.
An expert on people who believe that they have religious claim to a land on both sides. Right?
Yeah, I am so with you on that. Yeah,
I think it would be dishonest and disrespectful to make a statement about something not knowing. Right?
And when you were sort of a voice during the initial, especially war in Ukraine, you were receiving information from skaters in Ukraine, people that were there.
That was about helping skaters.
Correct.
If we were asked to help the Israeli skaters in Israel, that's a completely different thing. Like it's a different scenario, like certain things that it's going on.
And this is not NBC or
no.
where we have fact checkers and producers handing us all this information.
Do you want to know what really happened when the war started? I was at the figures event with Debbie Thomas, and we were in the ring for 12 hours a day. I barely knew what was going on and didn't have time to even open the news because there's no Wi-Fi in Lake Placid anywhere. It is like the dark ages.
Okay.
Just crazy for me to be here of all places, of all people, So, and it's like you're camping. Okay. When there is no Wi-Fi, it literally feels like you're camping.
Yeah.
That is how this works. I was like, Literally, Oksana, don't know. Okay, but don't be yelling at me, girl. Okay.
My time that used to sort of be my one connection to non-connected phone and internet time was in the air. And then they took that away. And then I'm like, damn it, I never put this phone down.
Oh no, you got to go to Lake Placid. If you drive at night, you drive in like one lane road, and it feels a mix between a Hallmark movie and like Making a Murderer on Netflix.
Oh God.
It's the perfect marriage of like quaint, but maybe not quaint enough. Is it quaint? Like, or are you getting into serial killer? Like, don't.
Yeah, I believe that.
Traveling by yourself is interesting because you're forced to make connections and be authentic, and in a place like this, I mean, it's very different. And you talk about like not being like New Jersey. Like, Jonathan, how would you respond if someone's like, oh, you figure skate, can I come watch you skate tomorrow? And I was like, me? Like, what? Like,
I'd be like, are you hitting on me?
And then like there's a guy that I was like walking to the coffee shop, and he was like, I saw you practice this morning. Yes. And I was like,
no hiding, no hiding.
You know, people are just friendly and genuine, and they're used to stuff coming in town. And
you're the flag. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I hung out with someone to, you know, get coffee with and walk around and go shopping, and like they drove from an hour away, and that's like nothing. Karen Cortland used the phrase, oh, Toronto is just a quick 5-hour drive in the car.
Well, yeah, that
people in Manhattan won't even go to Brooklyn. Okay, like
I'm like, oh my gosh, Brooklyn! I got to set aside the whole day. Yeah.
Okay. Like. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Now imagine getting to Espoo.
I also really like it here, though. Like, I'm not against it. I'm just saying it's different, and it's a nice break
for sure. Yeah.
There are stressful aspects of it,
as there are in New Jersey and Manhattan as well.
Like, you never know what rink you're skating in here. You never know if it's going to show up on time, if the rink's going to be up. It's just, you know, it's like
different pace of life also.
Different pace, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Espoo, Finland, Jonathan, this is an interesting event because different fields had different caliber of teams.
Yeah, okay. It did. What I found the most competitive field, obviously, ice stands.
Oh, yes. Let's start there, because Chock and Bates were here, and I actually felt like their performance was very similar to Deanna Stellato's in that they came out so strong at their first Grand Prix, and now we're seeing the dip. And I wonder if they are tired, or if it looked a little, you have to wonder, there's a lot of pressure on them. There's a real political stuff going on. You can tell in ice dance, because every time these teams compete based on who the panel is, the scores are wildly different. With Gillis and Poirier, Chock and Bates, the Italians, right? Like, the scores are fluctuating, so you don't really know. And obviously they feel a lot of pressure to get the top score. And you know, there's these competitions, and it's not really the same, but we view it as the same, right? And there's a lot of stuff politically going on that we really won't know. And it's a mental game, you know, for these skaters who just have to go out there and perform. They're not the ones asking for the panels to be so slanted one way or another, or because you want a realistic, yes, you want to win, but you want a real, like, if you're a secure competitor, you want to know that you're the best. Right. And I don't think that there's a clear front runner at this moment, because IM has almost been on top for 10 years. This is kind of like their 10th season at the top. In COVID, Papadakis and Cizeron, you know, would they have won that? Would they have not? Against the Russians were making that real push that year, and that was the real story, and it got cut, and we don't know. I tend to think that they would have pulled out the win at the World Championships, but stranger things have happened. And then, you know, the next year, Papadakis and Cizeron didn't compete, but I think everybody thought that they were the best in 2021. So they've really been at the top of the sport for 10 years. And I think last year, Chock and Bates winning with a fall, people smell blood. Remember when Scott Moyer won with his stumble, the French were able to make that push the next year. And I think that this is kind of happening. There's a lot of anti-I am backlash. I mean, people talked about when Green and Parsons decided to switch coaches, there were people telling them, you'll do better if you're in America, coached by an American, right? Does that mean coached by a white person? Not a like a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant rather than a Russian? Like, is that what we're saying? Like, right? And you start to think like, okay, so there's all of this politics, and people are always going to have their own opinion about what's going to help you the most. But it's clear, based on the panel at Skate Canada, that they wanted to make a statement about Montreal. And then I think other panels have maybe corrected the course, right? But I think for Chock and Bates, they were so brilliant at Skate America. The rub on them is that they don't have the best speed, the skating skills. Therefore, when they make a mistake in a skating element,
like a big one in a twizzle, yeah,
I think it plays into the criticism against them and makes it very hard for the judges and for viewers to feel one way or another about their ability and their talent and their trajectory. Although they are far and above performing better and more prepared than they were last season. Last season, they were limping, right? So I would not be surprised if they needed a little dip, whether they knew it or not, subconsciously or not. You know, imposter syndrome in top people is real, to push themselves to the final, because I do think that winning the final will be very important this year. I mean, it's important every year, but
here's the interesting thing. The placements seem to line up with exactly what we think. We know ice dance is like a habit or a creature of habit. They just like the same people in the same spots. She had the error on the twizzle.
Do you think it's that, though, or do you think it's that their skating doesn't change that much from year to year? I mean, in the ways that we see it, because they're not doing jumps, right? So if you became more flexible, you would have had to develop like a new lift over the year. Or is it that your lift got better? What did you focus on in the off season? How hard did you work in the off season, right? I think that in singles, we can see it so easily, right?
I guess what I'm seeing more this year on the Grand Prix, yes, we saw some very clearly inflated home nation moments to push certain dance teams up in the big picture. However, we see vulnerability in these placements. Chock and Bates here, yes, okay, they won despite the error. Only 3 of the judges put them in first place in that free dance.
Yeah.
So to me, it does show, and the Canadians, Fournier, Beaudry, and Sørensen, like, they've done this a couple times with the people in front of them where they sneak right on in when they need to.
And I have to say, I like them very much. The free dance for me, I was curious about your opinion of Notre Dame de Paris. You know, it's not a very popular musical in America, right? It is
in New York once. It was at the Lincoln Center Theater, actually,
once.
Right? Yeah.
You said it once, right?
Yep.
It might just be my ear. To me, Notre Dame de Paris, Johnny did it. Tiffany Stiegler did it in the Torino season, 2006. Marilyn Charlie did it, right? I don't see anything new or different in this iteration. I don't know. It starts, there's something about this musical.
There's more lip syncing in this version.
To me, it's a lot of overwrought stuff, right? And I just don't connect with it when it's not. Marilyn Charlie had a nice presentation.
Yours was a softer version.
Yeah.
And this is sort of this like reckless abandon, raw emotion thing that they're aiming for. This is,
to me, it's like heavy. Is that yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder if in the arena, like if we were not watching so many close-ups, would it be more effective? And
Does it feel dated to you? It feels dated to me as a skating concept.
It doesn't feel innovative.
Yeah.
And I think had they done this back in the day, it would have been. But
the like, Chock and Bates one does feel innovative. Last year's felt flop. Just a flop.
Like they ran out of time and had to come up with something. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm not sold on the Notre Dame de Paris. I think that their rhythm dance is much more in line with who they are and how they present themselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's more successful for me for that reason, although she is phenomenal in that free dance all the way through, right? Like, it's nothing bad. It's just, I don't connect with it.
I mean, they said in an interview afterwards, they really want to medal at the Grand Prix final. I was like, well, me too. But what I was curious, who they felt they were going to most easily take off that podium. Because I think most of us would consider the Italians, Chock and Bates, and Piper and Paul are the podium favorites.
And I think all of them would have to make mistakes. And
I think they should have no problem in staving off the British.
I think it'll be close.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing you could tell about the British team, if you're in Gibson, the level of ambition is clear. And I think we've always seen that in terms of the music they pick, that they want to be crowd appealing. They have a very good PR. And you can start to see, like, these are workhorses towards their career. They're getting advice from Tessa Virtue. She's doing, and then they start to talk about their skating ability. And you can see, if you watch the middle of their program, like, more of an attention to glide, right? They still have extensions to work on and skating bigger, but you can see improvement. And they're just such, they're pretty strong competitors, I would say. They always show up prepared and perform accordingly. And
I can't help but feel like back to back in person, you would see the Canadians just be so big and fast, so much easier.
But don't you feel like they make errors kind of in the past?
We certainly saw, obviously, with their Twizzle disaster earlier in the season, like they're vulnerable. Yeah.
I just feel that they have been more inconsistent than the British over time, but I don't know if that's...
When it was interesting, because we saw the British competing.
I don't know if that's entirely accurate or that's my perception of them. But when I think of them as being a better team, perhaps with potential, but less steady than the British. Okay. And if I am just like, I expect the British to perform every time. Yeah. Like Ali Raisman. I just expect it.
Okay. I mean, what's intriguing is we saw so much of the British early in the season, and now it's been a while. Yeah. So I'll be intrigued. What do they come back with? Was that a good thing, or does that sort of throw the momentum? I don't know. By
the way, I think it's great that there's back and forth between fourth and fifth. It makes it interesting, and I like both teams. So I don't have a problem with this, right? Yeah. But I do wonder. The Finnish team.
I love them the most.
I love them.
I love them the most.
The only thing is I do skate with ice dancers. And I do skate with freestyle skaters who switch to ice dance, because that is the entree for many ice dancers. I do think it takes a couple of years to become an ice dancer. And it's not in the turns that you can do, but in how you perform them and what the depth of edge and the cleanliness of the turn is. And it's just a very different standard and technique between ice dance and singles. And I think that if you look at the Finnish team and Zingas and Kolesnik, I think that both teams are doing a great job of turning a single skater into a really good ice dancer. It's just a process, right? Yeah. And it's just something that takes time.
And you named my two favorite teams here, in all honesty.
And they are great, right? Yeah. But both teams have partners that come from singles, and they're just not complete ice dancers yet. They are ice dancing, but they are not doing the turns in the way that you would if you did ice dance edge class.
Those stationary and rotational lifts in that Finnish team, I don't think anyone's are better in my.
she's delicate. She's got a long neck, and she's showing her JoJo Starbuck necklace.
Stunning.
Stunning.
And the speed at which they do those things. And I am obsessed with the arm movements throughout, not only the opening, but in the choreographic assisted jump or whatever they call that. I just love it. Compared to Zingas and Kolesnik, whom I also love, I just feel they're subject to sort of like that middly Igor material.
I don't find this program to be middling Igor material. I don't think that Beauty and the Beast is the most original choice. I'm never sure about the red and black costume. It's just a little odd, right? But I think that it's interesting. I think that they are good. I don't know that they're necessarily better than the Browns, right? But I think that they could challenge the Browns. Are they better than Green and Parsons? I think it depends on the day, right? I think that they could be. I think in a year, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Right now, depends on the day. And depends on how, I think politically, if I were a USFS judge, the discussion that everyone's having. Do we really expect Hawaii Baker to be at nationals? If they're at nationals, are they going to be trained well enough? And are we still going to put them second? Are we going to push them to be second? Or is this a team that was just going to get injured again? Right? Like, what is the upward? And I think that, honestly, I'm sure their coaches are looking, and I would not be surprised if they were yanked at the last second.
Yeah.
Because
after
if you go to nationals and they are not ready, so much so that the judges would have to place them fourth, even if they were going to move from second to third, it's not like in singles where, oh, you made the world team. That's good. If this team is going to be third at nationals, that means that international judges are going to pounce.
Right.
It's just what happens in ice dance. And it's not a fair thing. It's very rare that, the order gets shifted in ice dance, right? Especially in second and third, right? And I just think it would be unclear. If I were Team USA,
regardless of the order, who are you seeing as that second and third team in the US at the moment?
I think it's Chock and Bates.
Yeah.
And then I think it's a cluster, depending on the day and who the coaches and who the judges are, right? Green and Parsons, Zingas and Kolesnik, the Browns.
Well, what about Ponomarenko?
Green and Parsons, Zingas and Kolesnik, the Browns.
I see what you did there, Dave. I am with you. Internationally, they seem to keep putting Ponomarenko ahead.
They're finishing okay.
Yeah.
They have not had a wow moment. We have seen splashes of wow from Zingas and Kolesnik, from the Browns. Green and Parsons have been steady enough, right?
Yeah. You're right. So like in the free dance here, Carrera and Ponomarenko were 3 points ahead. But
that's the thing, is like there's nothing about this program. And they look like hard workers. They look like
I don't want someone to look like a hard worker.
But I don't mean that in a negative way. I've seen a lot of improvement in Christina, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
Anthony's ankle ability with his injuries still looks limited to me in terms of his ability to execute difficult turns and generate speed. And that stiffness, to me, I think they also don't really have a lot of connection with each other as a team, Christina and Anthony. And I don't know, they skate like coworkers, right? But to me, there's something just not gelling. Although I think Madison Hubble seems very invested in the team, and I think that they've done a good job with them, and a team that she's probably learned a lot from coaching, and they're steady. So if another team messes up, you could slot them in to go to Worlds.
Right.
They're just not a team that honestly, I wouldn't invest in them. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, I just look at the field and I'm like, okay. I'd rather Ian Somerville get a better partner, and look at some of the other, look at, other teams that, Wolfkinson, Isabella Flores, look for those gems. I just don't see the big potential in competitive ice dance.
Yeah, it's totally fair. That's why I think
chemistry's not there. Like this, like it's just something intangible that it's like almost, but not. It's like, okay, Jonathan, if you were having lunch with someone and it's fall of 1997 and the Campbell soup cans came out, winter of 97, and you're having coffee with Tanya Kwiatkowski and she says, Jonathan, I really want to make the Olympics. What's going to happen to your gut inside? Are you going to start to feel that butterfly feeling where you are like, oh man.
She has no idea. Yeah.
Right? That's how I feel with this team.
Yeah.
I listened to that interview of Christina driving across the border hours a day. And I was like, this poor girl, like, because it's just so stacked in the US. If they were in a different country, who cares, right? But it's just tough in the US. Those teams, like the Browns, are good.
Yeah,
Zingas and Kolesnik have like
big
huge potential.
Yeah,
and Green and Parsons have been very successful for a long time.
They're a little lost at the moment.
They're a little lost.
Yeah.
I would move them to Montreal. Hawaii can make a retire. I would slot them right in.
Yeah, I think they'd be a good fit too.
Yeah, I think they have experience with short boys and taller female partners, right?
And I think Zingas and Kolesnik are capable of just more interesting programs that will catapult them. Yeah. But their basics are so right there. They're just an exciting watch for me.
Yeah, I agree.
And the finish.
They have an it factor that Carrera and Ponomarenko lack.
Yeah.
I don't think that free dance is recognizable enough to be the vehicle for the season. I don't think their costume colors. I'm sorry?
Who's free dance?
Carrera and Ponomarenko.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which is the Anna Sherbakova short program that was, which I didn't think was great for her.
Yeah.
It was fine. Ice dance program can't be fine.
Right.
It needs to be spectacular.
That subject matter. That's heavy. You could have really gone for it, but.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, it lacks connection, and what they're portraying requires connection.
Right.
So
there you have it.
There you have it. I don't know. I don't get romantic male lead from Anthony. I just don't. It's just not what I would pick for them for a vehicle.
There's a lot of literal space between them.
Yeah.
Which is not helping the figurative space seemingly between them. Yeah.
Now, the women's event here was interesting. Kaori showed up, looked like a world champion, but to me, I can see I saw more what Marie-France was trying to do with her with the free skate. There are a couple parts in the program when Kaori throws her arms up, and it's supposed to be a cool, and it just doesn't work. And the basic posture is the root of all of it. And it's just not working. Her posture has not improved, really. I don't know if she's focusing it as much. Last year, there seemed to be more of a focus. To me, it's not the best vehicle. It feels stale. I would advise going back to at least one of her programs for last year, if not both.
I know there's this whole narrative about the short program, and it shows a softer side, and she wanted to do it, and it's a tribute to her niece and nephew or something like that. And I love that, and she has certainly earned the right to just skate to what she wants to. Competitively, it just sort of shows me what she doesn't thrive at.
Yeah.
But of course, she wants to keep pushing the boundaries. But the women's discipline for me this season, and it's obviously been a while, but this is a tough one this season for me. A lot of sort of interchangeable, a lot of formulaic, and I know I've been saying it for years about the ladies' discipline, but this one in particular is just a lot of forgettableness. I think. In the
Yeah. But I think we're also in this weird transition phase where, and I see it in the US all the time, and it's because we have think about how many like waspy coaches went out of business because the Russians kind of took over with coaching in the US, right? But not every one of those Russians was an expert. And how many of them coached up and coming top 5 US female skaters where they kind of copy what Terry was doing from a literal edge class to the spinny technique. And now the age has been raised. So that technique that you learned that was ideal for a 14-year-old prepubescent girl to rotate, that is not built for long-term success. Everyone said, oh, are the Russians going to struggle when this all changes? Look at how much the American girls are struggling. And Amber Glenn is the one who is rising because maybe she's the only one who has more standard jump technique that's built for an adult female, if you really think about it.
And doesn't struggle in the same ways with her under rotations like others.
Right. But how many of them have technique that's been kind of imitation or derivative of things that were going on with the Mia Hamada and Terry schools?
Yeah.
So that's, I don't think it's a coincidence that Amber Glenn is all of a sudden more in favor, because how many girls are getting older? Like think about Lindsay and Isabeau were both really coming up 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Now they are young women, right? And
yeah,
it's harder, but they weren't taught that Scottville technique, right? Think about how Nancy's jumps just were good from, if you watch her in the mid 80s on, right? Because she learned how to jump in the proper way.
Right.
And this other way is not working. And it's hurting the American girls. Russia has 20 girls that they can find someone who is not.
Who will figure it out. Yeah.
Who will figure it out, right? And I think we're in a weird transition where I think the trends in jumping and in teaching jumps, I think we could see new coaches emerge, right? If they're smart, to develop them young. And honestly, I think a lot of it goes back to competitiveness, parents who are watching competitions and then studying the protocols. I actually have I've wondered about this. If the protocol sheet didn't exist, would coaches have an easier job? So much so because in their ice rink, this is what happens at the very young levels. Parents become competitive, pre-preliminary, preliminary. By juvenile, they are rabid, right? They are rabid. They are spending money. They have spent time. They have spent years and stress of their lives, and they've lost touch, right? So you get a parent who sees a kid that has a level 3 spin instead of a level 4, or they get a level 2 footwork sequence. It is never the kid's fault for not performing the footwork sequence well. They immediately go to the coach, threaten to fire the coach, whatever, right? Think about how many kids in the US over the years, like a Caroline Jang. She came up, IJS was just starting, right? She competed under 6.0. But she didn't have, maybe she wasn't judged in her IJS for the spins early on, but she had the most phenomenal spins, but technique that would lead to cheated jumps from the get-go. Really, Mirai did too. And it was hard for both of them, right? And I think so much so now that the girls that do well early on are ones that have very loose joints, are super flexible, can get the points on the spins, and the jumps are like, yeah. And the judges also don't reward like a really great double Lutz with a real outside edge and that's airy. They don't really give it that many more points than Lutz. So how many skaters that are coming up are getting points on spins, but aren't getting points for really solid jumps that are really quite good? And the spins are the easier things for many people to learn early and to get points to be competitive, right? Because you will lose out when it's that deep in a field. And And I think that it's a problem of the IJS too. Like literally a lot of things are working against based on how this winds up working in practice. I mean, in a Terry school, I think they just focus on getting points everywhere, get that rotation done, right? Not how well, get it done and get that spin done, right?
Yeah.
And
it was especially interesting here. The callers across the discipline at this event were outrageously strict. Like we saw a lot of high-level skaters, and again, to the naked eye, like, well, and we'll get into it in the men. Whole elements were being invalidated left and right because they decided they weren't meeting criteria.
Yeah.
And to me, this whole levels discussion is also a problem with IJS for many reasons, but just the visual. I don't want to see a level 4 spin. I'd rather see one blurred scratch spin.
Well, I think that the audience, I think it's important for the audience to be able to watch a sporting event and intrinsically know who won.
Right.
Without reading a term paper.
Right.
Because that's not how you get multiple people in the sport. You might get someone who's super bright into the sport, but you don't get the average person into the sport. Yeah. And I think you need more of the average people to convert, to develop more champions, to develop more interest, and so on and so forth. And I think that you need to be able to watch it and be like, wow, that was great. Yeah, that was really something that phenomenal. And I think that that's hard, especially more so now.
You remember you used to do, when TSL had the website, was it called like Favorite Things Friday or something like that? Yeah. And you did this great article where it was like the programs that we were obsessed with and competitive moments that didn't win.
Oh, okay. I don't remember doing this, but yes. Okay.
It was like Daisuke in Nice.
Oh, yes.
Skating, but then Patrick, and I remember you were talking with Sandra once, and she was like, yes, there was an evening where, like, I think she said Mirai, where it was like in 2008, I'm making this up. And she was like, Mirai so won that night at National.
Oh, it was 2010. Remember, it was her against Rachel Flatt. And
yeah. And it was just like, there are those moments that we used to remember when someone won the night but didn't win it. And now I find it almost every competition.
Yes.
The person who's winning the moment is not actually winning the competition.
Yeah. I agree.
Do you think Amber is now capable of bringing the short from Skate America and the long from here moving forward?
I don't know. I think it depends on the people around her and the voices that she has. Yeah. Because if I were talking to Amber, I would be like, you broke your face before Skate America and still pulled out a good program and then a triple axel and almost a program besides the last two passes, but you broke your face and you were in such good shape that you were able to do that. I'm sure she's battling some imposter syndrome after having a career of inconsistency, but I would frame it to her being like, look how well you're doing. You are the best female skater in the US and everybody knows it.
Right.
And everybody is behind
the judges. The judges are ready.
Yeah. They know it. She's giving you real jumps in a field. Come on. Chayun Kim, Rion, like these are smaller jumps.
Right.
Rion, whose shoulders are up here, like, come on. Like, they are ready to give Amber that big, expansive skating. She's like Hubble and Donahue in singles. They're ready to go there.
Right.
She has to deliver.
Yeah.
So I think with her, it's whoever her mental coaches are, her therapist. Is she doing EMDR? Like, what are you doing to get yourself in the best psychological shape, ready to go?
Yeah.
And I would say for Amber, someone that had a series of inconsistent performances, frankly, Johnny, Sasha, Jeremy, Alyssa, Amber, put them all in EMDR and go. Because I look at Simone Biles. She had the twisties on TV, which is psychological. She's done EMDR since. Is what, from when you read between the lines of how she describes what she's doing with her therapy, although she doesn't use that term, right? You look at then her ability to bounce back from that and perform well. Yes, I think Amber, if she had the right mental preparation, I think it could be possible. Yeah.
It's a big ask, that mental preparation, clearly. Is
it? Is it a big ask because you train for how many hours a day and spend how many thousands of dollars with a coach? And if the mind controls the body, is it that much of an ask, or is it that part of your preparation that's necessary?
How does Colorado sort of view that sort of thing? Do we know?
I don't know. How do they view artistry? How do they view anything? Not well.
Oh,
you know,
that's why I'm concerned.
It doesn't seem like it's the Renaissance. Okay, it doesn't seem like yeah. Have you ever been there?
Colorado Springs?
No.
No, I don't think so, actually.
I felt so suffocated. I couldn't wait to get out. It reminded me of big box hell and planned development. I don't know. I just had Denver was fine. Boulder, lovely, right? Like
I've been to Denver several times.
I don't know, Colorado Springs. There was just something about it. I felt suffocated immediately when we were driving around. Jenny will remember it. She'll be like, "You hated it," like from moment one.
Okay.
I don't know.
There you have it.
Couldn't wait to get out. You know, like it was just not me.
Okay. That's how every skater felt last year at Four Continents. Now, the same thing sort of happened for me in the men's discipline.
Okay.
That was happening where some of my favorites were.
Also, I think Rihanna's fine. I think she'll do well this year. Do I think she's a star?
I mean, I think she has to have the quad if she wants in. She still looks very junior to me, even though I know she's 20. Yeah. But there's something just juniorish coming across about this.
There's a lot of knees and elbows and angles and yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to say someone was really going with the chicken wing arms or whatever that we call that. Was that her? No, it was Jeon Kim. A little bit with like the arms out on a line.
That hurts you aerodynamically.
Of course. I can't figure that, and it's so visually distracting.
Not helping your rotation. No. It's a bad habit, but yeah.
Yeah.
I posted a video today where we show how you train the arm position and the back spin to not have those arms, and you pull down and in, so you're pulling your scapula. And this is where I'm working with Karen because my scapula are weak because my head goes forward.
Okay.
So, and then that affects everything. It affects my head and the double sow, and we're strengthening that and getting rid of the health. But when you see someone that has the arms, they're not pulling down and they're not becoming like a long tube, right? It's going there. So that's what's going on. Yeah. So there's a myriad of things, but yeah, I have to say, Kevin and Sylvia continue to be the most entertaining hot mess. I just think of this message from Jacob Kovner that we got last year, who's a longtime viewer. He was a skater in Hackensack, and he goes, "That is a messy codependency that Kevin and Sylvia have." And like, whether it's true or not, I'm saying it was a funny line, and I think about it every time that they skate. It's all I think of, like, that is a messy codependency that Kevin and Sylvia have. You know, because I messaged her before the event. I said, "How's it going?" She's like, "My boy has been away from me for 2 weeks." I'm like, listen, are you putting scared energy into him before he goes out? Like, what is happening? They need a documentary about Kevin and Adam Seo-Him-Fa. Like, is Kevin emotional about how well Adam's doing? He must be, knowing Kevin, right? I'm riveted by this. Come on. A documentary film where you have Benoit and that with whatever's going on here. They could show them working together, right? Benoit's whole vibe. Sylvia, Kevin crying, happy. John Zimmerman go into that. Great film, okay? Fun for the whole family. It would be phenomenal, okay? Just leave it up on YouTube with the subtitles. Remember that Papadakis and Cizeron documentary got taken down so fast, okay? Like, we need to watch it with the subtitles. Otherwise,
the thing that was so confusing about the short program were the types of errors. Like the pop out of that, like
the quad toe.
turned double toe when he was forward. And then even when he went in for the Lutz combo, like the legs were all sorts of confused in a way. I was like, I don't actually understand this mistake. Sometimes you under rotate, sometimes
mind-body connection was not as strong as it needed to be that night. That's, I think, pretty clear.
But still always interesting. I mean, the other one, my heart really went out for Matteo Rizzo here.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, that was one where, and I have yet to figure out the information, the choreographic sequence was just wiped.
And he did that uncomfortable move where he went up in the judges and did his thing. What I noticed about Matteo against Kevin,
that he's been doing better longs than shorts, that's for sure.
He inherently lacks performative star quality. He skates like a very nice academic boy who puts on fun music. This year, he has a very nice costume. Although I think that you need, if you're going to go out there in an expensive costume with a program that was choreographed, you need to at least wear bronzer so you don't look pale under those lights. And a lot of these boys haven't learned this yet.
Eyes, like, oh my goodness.
He needs to do something with his hair to make it splashy. I don't know, right? He has this casual look about himself.
Very introspective, I guess. And
he
it's
needs to puncture.
Yeah.
Make it so that you can't help but put him ahead, right? And sometimes I feel he holds back in his body lines, in the chest out, the arm back. He is not perfectly stretched, right? And he has a very nice body for a line.
Yeah. But I have to say, like, the
chin could be up, the eyes could be brighter. He could give it 10% more in almost every position. And he's against Kevin. And you know what? Kevin's giving it 500% more in every position. So then you look like muted. You know, like when a sweater has been washed too many times and the color is just faded. That's what it's looking against his Tide whites, right? Like, it's like literally like the commercial for the detergent where they're showing you other detergents after 100 washes and this one, right?
Yeah.
He needs to stand out. He needs to be more vibrant. He needs to be more confident. He needs to just exude that he is the best. He's got 2 years to get it done before the Home Olympics, right? And that is what is going to hold him back. Shoma has it. Okay, Shoma extends like crazy. Adam performs like crazy. Kevin, he's inconsistent and a hot mess, but when he turns it on, oh wow, right? Yeah. And like the Bolero program is growing on me. I think it's much. I don't know that
that's part of the brand, I think. Yeah.
I don't like Kevin's short program that much this year. I don't like, from the costume to the music.
That costume is a bit distracting for Kevin. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, and the music, and it's just like frou-frou, but not elegant in the way that you would want. And I don't know, it doesn't all go together cohesively for me. I don't know. It's just like, it's off. You know, like it's not creating a unified vibe, right?
But the content being put out choreographically by Matteo, I hear what you're saying. I still prefer it to many others.
Yes.
But Matteo and Kevin, then, when they're put up against Shun Sato and Miura, like, yes, they're jumping. This is far more interesting to me.
Agreed.
And it's interesting because I think Shun
had the best free skate here. You know, I mean, that was clear.
Those quad lutzes and the quad flip in the short, like, he is really upping this technical content.
He has a nice knee bend to him.
It'd be hard to deny him.
You know, Miura is very consistent overall. He seems very strong-minded and very determined. I just don't respond to it. I feel like every program is masking his weaknesses in performance and in deportment and in artistry, right? So to me, he seems like just a jumper.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in it.
Yeah. And I don't know if
is he a better jumper than Kazuki Tomono? Yes. But do I hope that Kazuki is ahead of him at Japanese nationals? Yeah, I think it's better for the sport.
Yeah. And it's interesting.
If they gave Miura honest artistic scores, they'd be low.
Yeah. Well, and Shun Sato is inherently not this sort of like dancer performer, but you can tell he's being told to do something more and trying. They're at least creating pictures I see him attempting to achieve. So overall, between those two, Shun Sato is the more alluring candidate for me. But with
there's a more accessible energy to Shun Sato. Kao seems more closed off, just determined and like tight.
Yeah.
But Shun seems to have a more pleasant soul coming out when he's performing.
Yeah, a bigger presence, also in that way, more generous skater, I guess, by comparison. I mean, it does make for an interesting situation in Japan. Outside of Shoma, Yuma's still a bit of a question mark. We don't know where
I believe in him. I have to say, I do believe in him, and I would send him to Worlds if he were 5th at Nationals. I would send Yuma.
But I also believe that if Yuma felt it was smarter for him to not go, that he would make that choice.
Yeah.
And but
he's doing great right now. He was fabulous in his last Grand Prix. So
then the question becomes, there are only now 800 of sort of the same level skater looking for that third spot. There's Kazuki, who I find certainly above and beyond the most charming and most charismatic, but deals with the consistency issues. But we have
who's the world team we want? Shoma, Yuma, Kazuki.
Yeah. But I could see Kazuki as vulnerable, and there's a lot of guys that if they just happen to hit clean,
I know,
could really.
To me, when we watched Japanese Nationals last year, it was the first time. Usually, the men's event, you have so many great artists and so many great skaters. To me, the men who didn't perform outnumbered those who did, and that to me was not as
the change. Yeah,
I felt it.
It was that 2000. Was that 14? That 2014 men's Japanese Nationals. Oh my gosh. I wanted all like top 8 of them on the podium. Yes. Yeah. It was ridiculous.
It didn't feel like that. It was.
Yeah.
In the women's event, not as many personalities as years past. Yeah. So, but I thought the men, like, I think that Matteo Rizzo has such a nice air position. Like, his quads are nice. I want him. I think he needs like some ballet training on deportment and that kind of work, because he's a good skater, but he's missing that extra anywhere, like the extra GOE in every position, the extra points. Like, it's too casual for me. I think
if anyone knows why they just got rid of that choreographic sequence in the scoring, please let me know, because I mean, that was a chunk of change missing from his score.
Yeah. So they counted first movements that he did. I don't know why, but anyway. The pairs event, I have to say, the team that stood out to me in the most was not the winner.
No, mine didn't even matter.
Peng and Wang, right?
Yeah.
Fabulous. They are fabulous.
I love them, and we are so long overdue for another Lori pair program.
Yes, and the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Yes,
I loved it. The triple toes were great in the short. They just had different timings. They've got great stroking, the nice twist, and that throw jump in the short program with the music I have never seen a pair land a jump like that choreographed so well with the music. Or a throw, rather. And it's always funny to me, especially on the replay, I'll take the time to watch the male partner.
Yes.
And so many of them just really hurdle the partner. And it looks awkward, like they're tripping and they make a grimace. He was just beautiful and in position, and she landed it smack dab on the music. It was just a frickin' moment. I felt, again, not as a technical specialist, I felt someone did him a little dirty in that free skate, because I didn't find that it was that much beneath anyone else. I would have loved to have seen them place high.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And, what I felt about, I mean, the Italians had a fall on the, on the triple toe. But to me, that program doesn't interest me in the free. It's workmanlike. It's very nice, but it's just mid-range for fine. It's fine. Yeah. I would not put them in the 9s.
No.
I would not put them in the highest.
In the 9s?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh.
Go to skatingscores.com and check where they're at. Okay. Yeah. He likes to plug. He doesn't like to put an ad on his site. I don't know why. We only tell him all the time, people are visiting your site. You could have a Google ad and be getting impressions with how many people visit you as a valuable resource. I don't know. Maybe he's a martyr. I don't understand.
It's too noble.
Why can't he put an ad on there if he knows how to import things from a database, like in real time? Like, what is he? I don't know. It's never been explained to me, but people on the internet.
But no, the Italians are high 7s and like 8s.
Yeah, that's where they're
still the highest thing.
The Germans, to me, very technically solid. Felt like a practice, like no real connection. No, I don't know.
Nice lifts, I guess.
Yeah, but it didn't excite me. But they were solid.
Yeah,
very solid.
Functional.
Very consistent, going to be a factor because they are so consistent, but artistically it lacked a lot for me. The Russian Hungarians continue to be a very powerful team and to me they are like the Brestians of pair skating. Like, they are all meat, no salt, no pepper. They are just power and elements, lack complete elegance or refinement, but they are just power and very solid. So yeah.
It does make for a very interesting pairs event at Europeans.
Yeah.
Again, it's like we were talking about in US dance, like there's just this like clump of very similarly abled teams.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the level I love, but it will be an interesting competition because it could go any one of 800 ways, it seems.
This was such a long week of skating. We had sectionals, we had the ice dance final, and all the kids that I skate with were competing. I mean, and the teams flip-flopped, which how people thought they were going to finish. I mean, the one team, the mother messaged me and like didn't know if they were going to make it this year. For junior dance, like teams stay in there for like 4 or 5 years. They stay in for a long time, and the stress was real. They all made it. Okay, they all made it.
Crisis averted. Okay.
That William Lesueur, I was channeling him to get those twizzles done.
Okay.
Get it in.
Yeah, you should have sent some of that good mojo over to.
Everybody loves William. He's just the kid at the rink. They make him do this stuff on the ice. He's a good sport. He's doing the can at the end of it. And of course, like, he grew this year. The limbs are so long. I'm like, why are you doing this? Why? Yeah. Right? Okay. You do the can at the end of Moulin Rouge.
Okay.
You're a really good sport. I mean, he's very endearing and he's smart and everybody likes him. But, it's stressful when they compete. You're just like.
It's hard to care about that skater. It makes it so much more hard as a fan.
It was stressful. I
believe you.
And then we have Rowan, who's doing the K-pop program. I mean, it was just a lot of stress going on, but they split for 3 months and got back together. Were they going to have enough time to get it together? It's stressful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
man, teams are messy. It's a whole thing when they go to competitions. Okay?
Yeah, I bet.
How are both partners feeling?
And how do they feed off of that energy from one another? Yeah.
We don't hear about that enough with the top teams. That's like very real. Okay. Like,
one gets nervous, so I let them go do their thing. This one drives me bonkers.
This one was feisty last year, but is nervous this year. What happened in between? Like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Okay. And I give the kids pep talks before competitions.
Nice.
Very intense.
Just like Paul Wiley. Yeah.
Not like Paul Wiley.
Okay.
We swear at the children because they've heard worse at the rink. Okay, that's fine. Okay, they are.
Want to keep it familiar. Yeah.
Yes. They're training with Russians in Jersey. These are not soft skills.
Yeah. We want to
Some of their mothers sent them to Hackensack when they were 8. You know, they can take it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very stressful. The kids, the ice stands, oh my God.
Whole shebang. Okay.
Whole shebang. And it starts from juvenile when the drama is just never ending. Yes.
If not from the skaters, maybe from those around them. Yeah.
Oh, when you know the skaters, it is like Dance Moms the whole week. The whole week. Oh, of course. And you know, when the kids are younger, which one's crying at practice, which one's nervous, fell in a twizzle, hurt their knee, left practice early. Like, it is just a gigantic mess of there could be so many documentaries about sectionals. Like, it's just the greatest competition to watch. The worst one to compete in, the best one to watch. Because that desperation is what is so exciting. Yes.
It reads every time. Yeah.
Yes. Come on, we got to see Caroline Zhang. Her skater had such determined jump technique last week. Oh. I have never seen a girl will themselves into a double axel like that before. Oh.
You're watching, because the last time I watched sectionals,
US figure skating on YouTube, and then they put the juniors and seniors on Peacock. But I don't know why they took it down, because at least for a couple of hours, you could watch the teams on YouTube. I don't know why we can't just watch all of the time, but at least they're making some. But don't they just realize that the live, you get the views so that it ranks in the algorithm and then more people come in later?
No,
they have not figured that. Yeah. They don't know that. Yeah. Okay. Or they're so afraid of the music. Who knows? Like, why does gymnastics not have the same problem? Right? I digress. You know what? They're getting there. You know what? They made one small improvement. And then they were like, oh, none of the juniors. Oh, the teams that people might recognize. Oh, let's put them on Peacock. Yeah.
Amazing.
Which is crazy, because if you're thinking about Junior Worlds, you want your team to be accessible. You want people to be able to watch them, to build reputation.
If you thought that way, which you should if you're trying to grow it.
What was your moment of the week?
I'm going to say the Finnish free dance. That's how much I like it.
Okay. I'm going to say Peng and Wang. I just really like that.
That was going to be my other choice. Everyone's going to say Amber's like leap back up. But
Amber was great, but we didn't see the triple axel this time. And I think she's great.
Yeah.
But no.
I like
Peng and Wang. Peng and Wang gave me hope that pairs as a discipline has teams coming up in the future that are going to be great.
Hope is the right word, because I felt the same. Yeah.
Hold it edge, it looks sexy, everyone. Might have.